Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Big podcast. So glad that you're back with us. Hope it's been a great week. What we want to do is expand some of the things that you've been exposed to and thinking about, whether faith guides your steps or you are having a great day or a lousy day, whether you're surrounded people that are a little angsty, or maybe you're in a super loving community. The idea of communicating what we feel, why we feel it, what we're going to do about our ambitions is so important. And I stumbled upon McKinnon Galloway, and you are going to have a new best friend after this. She's been so inspiring in my life. And so I want to have McKinnon introduce herself because she's faced some unique challenges that I think you guys might be able to say, okay, well, that may not be the challenge I've had. How can I apply some of the lessons that she's learned with so much joy in my life? So, McKinnon, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're with us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. So,
This
as
is,
Bob said, my name is McKenna Galloway. And I think, part of my story is I had this rare genetic disorder called NF2. And I was diagnosed when I was 16, but I went from complete hearing to completely deaf, which makes me kind of a unique situation because, I'm deaf living in a hearing world, which is, very unique. But I started, NF2 is a rare genetic disorder where tumors grow on nerves throughout the body. So I have some brain tumors, some spinal tumors, some hand tumors, got a little bit of tumors over. And so I started on chemotherapy when I was 16. I've been through 15 years of chemo, for brain surgeries, phase one experimental trials. The hospital's been my friend.
yes. Yeah, I really find the thing that's so outstanding about you is that you find joy in it seems like everything that you do. I stumbled across you and we've struck up this friendship. On Instagram, you're teaching people how to do sign, and I teach at San Quentin. And one of the inmates there decided to learn sign to teach the other people that had like setbacks. There was nobody to communicate with. And then this guy started teaching other inmates at sign, and now there's like a dozen ASL signing coaches throughout San Quentin. And so I stumbled upon you because I was trying to learn how to do sign. And then you popped on with like the joy of Tigger and this enthusiasm and positivity. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it as you're teaching people online how to sign.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I this actually goes really well with this podcast. So, one of the big things, so I actually started in deaf technology, and I kind of have a backstory to that. I went to this conference and I have a friend of mine, and he had him and his mom there, and I met him in person for the first time, and they were, texting each other, and I was like, "Hey, like here's this tablet." And I was like, how have you guys talked to each other? And his mom was shocked about the transcribed tablet. And she's like, we've just texted. And I was like, for how long? And she was like, for 10 years. And I was like, I was so shocked. So I showed her this tablet and she started crying. And then I was like, you can call him, he can call you too, these apps, right? Which I know she was very excited about, but I don't think he was very excited about. So I started dev technology, and then, kind of like your podcast, Dream Big, right? I was like, what if, we could dream bigger and I could educate, kind of my hearing community, some simple signs. I found like, a lot of deaf people in my situation, latent deaf people or people who are in hearing communities, are always part of the room, but we're never a part of the conversation.
Oh man, pause there for a second. When you're writing your memoirs, always in the room, but never part of the conversation. Wow.
Yeah, I read that somewhere, so I can't take total credit for it. But
So
it really
good though.
resonated with me. And I was like, you know what if I saw this thing like back, like you need to dream bigger. And I was like, what if I could teach some people some simple signs, some deaf technology, how to communicate with deaf people, and we could really bridge this gap.
Yeah, a great example of that right now is this podcast. So you've set up the tech so that you're reading what I'm saying as I'm saying it and then can respond even though you can't hear it. Oh, you were so cute. You were saying like, "Should I wear the headphones like on the podcast?" I'm like, that was so like kind and considerate because I had some on and you were thinking, is this going to help you hear me better, buddy? I find like people that have challenges are more sensitive and more heads up and an awareness about what's going on around them. Would you agree with that? That you just have a heightened sense of awareness about people and what are the signs, not literally like ASL signs, but the gestures and what does that mean and facial expressions?
So yeah, I just want to make sure I'm getting this correct. I mean, this question right is coming through right. So were you talking about, with the signs like, did I take sign language classes?
No, no, no. Like, do you find yourself because you've lost your hearing that you are more aware of people's gestures and facial expressions and like you're trying to pick up clues all the time on what they're trying to communicate through their body language and other things?
Oh, absolutely. So a lot of people they don't realize it, but they automatically do, body languages and facial cues and stuff. So when I first went deaf, we didn't have this technology and nobody in my community could sign, right? Except for my fiance. And so I didn't know how to lift weight. It's not, some magic power that you get when you get deaf. And so I always had to look at, the hand. You can see I'm moving with my hands all the time, but I had to look up like, the facial expressions, the way they're looking, like how sad they were, if their body was turned. So I put all these pieces together with their mouth movements to kind of understand what they're saying. It's not easy.
Yeah, think about this for a second as you're listening. That if we were more aware of what people are communicating with their body language, even with their choice of words, maybe even the cadence. Like when I get really revved up, I start talking super fast. The more insecure I get, the faster I talk. The more insecure I get, the funnier I think I am. And so, like to just say, pick up on those cues from people to understand a little bit more deeply where they're at and what are they trying to communicate, maybe beyond even the words. Do you find a disconnect when people are speaking to you? The words are coming through on your device, yet it doesn't match up with all the other messaging they're giving with their body language and facial cues. Is that a confusing thing, or have you found
All the
yourself
time.
all the time? So, give an example about that where somebody's saying something,
Yeah,
you're reading the
absolutely. So,
words.
I think a lot of the times, it's really hard when you have a tablet and you're looking down because then you're missing the facial expressions, right? Like you're missing, and you have to think about it, facial expressions are like the tone of your voice, right? If you're angry, like you're gonna look angry. And so I'm
Right.
constantly looking down at my tablet and I'm missing that. And that's why I decided to come on and kind of start teaching sign and stuff because it really connected me with their facial expressions and I could look at them, I got.
It would
So,
be
but
so
I mean,
interesting.
it happens all the time.
It would be so interesting if the tech would be that the streaming words would go right across their forehead, so you could be, like, looking at them while
We're
they're
working
doing.
on that. I'm actually pairing with somebody right now that we're doing caption glasses. And
Bingo.
so yeah, it's so close. With AI, like I truly believe that, by the time I'm 70, I'm gonna have my hearing back. Like I don't believe this is for forever.
Tell me about, there's this fiancé that you mentioned. Somebody came into your life along the way, and how have you guys navigated this relationship? I'm assuming he came in after, you lost your hearing, and then did he need to learn sign, or how did that work? How did you guys navigate that?
So we were actually together when I had hearing. We've been together for 10 years. I want to say 11 years. So we've been together for a long time. And so when I went deaf, it was really hard. I mean, he did know some sign, right? But it was a total change for us. everything was a total change. I mean, think about it. When I went out with, our friends and that kind of stuff, they all couldn't communicate. So he was kind of translated. And it was just so different than we've ever experienced. And I remember us sitting there looking at each other and we were just like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this work? And it was, one day at a time,
Yeah,
one day
think
at a
about
time.
that. Yeah, for those of you that are in a relationship or married, the communication between you and the spouse, like, do you keep it really surfacey? Um, I've been taught like a small C. We were giggling before the podcast started. If you put it on your hand, that's church. And if you like kind of bounce it a little bit and move it around, it means hot chocolate. Which cracks me up.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, you think you're inviting somebody to church and they think they're inviting you have been invited to hot chocolate. They're like, "Where's the marshmallows?" Um, so I want to think about how we communicate well with one another. And you need to have become a master of communication. Not only do you need to master verbal communication, like we're doing, but then also the communication of all the subtle nuances. Can you give us some tips on how to
Yeah,
read people?
absolutely.
Like
So I
even
think
you
I think
reading
the
me.
biggest thing, oh, sorry, did not mean to
No,
interrupt.
no,
The
no.
transcribe
Like
didn't come through.
yeah, yeah, even you, like, reading me. Like, here's this old guy, white whiskers, medium happy, got a baseball hat on, but it's like, give us some tips on how you read people and include that in the conversation.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things with, just me and my fiance in general is we looked up, what's healthy, right? Like at the end of the day, like if we're not communicating something in a healthy way, then, we had to figure out a different way to communicate it so it was healthy. We had a lot of obstacles on communication. And my friends, like when I first went deaf, we were all uncomfortable, right? And they would sit there and be uncomfortable with me because we just didn't know what to do. We just weren't we weren't sure how to. But even last night we had the Super Bowl, and I was with a few of my friends, and they are very they're very good with the tablet. They're learning some sign, like they're working on it, right? And they're asking me, hey, can you correct this? Hey, can you look at this? So I really think it, as far as communication, it just takes what is healthy and also to like your patience.
Is it, difficult to, articulate or sign deeper feelings, like, of tremendous frustration? Maybe there's a sign for I'm frustrated, but you mean like I'm capital
There
F frustrated
there
right
is, but
now.
everybody will know I'm frustrated with my face.
Okay, like your face tells the story.
They're gonna know. I'm gonna give them the look and they're gonna know.
What are the areas that you're growing in personally? Like, we have you right now, and now let's say you plus 10 years. Tell me about that woman. Who's she gonna be?
Hopefully alive.
You will be.
I
Yeah.
think one of the hardest parts I will say about my illness, and it's not necessarily about me losing my hearing, but I got grade 6 facial paralysis. So my face went completely out on my left side, and I had always been a person that if I looked okay, then I was okay. And all of a sudden I didn't look okay. So that was a big hurdle for me to come through the past year. Because I had brain surgery, I would say like a year and a half ago with that one. I was already deaf, but I had another brain surgery. And it was all of a sudden like I didn't look okay out in the world. And I was like, I'm not okay. So it was something mentally that I had to learn how to love myself again. And I kind of want to keep growing in that. Additionally, like I started this thing called Deaf District. And it's
Yes.
basically going to be a website I'm really excited to release it. It's coming out in March. But it's going to be a hub for all things deaf for people who are in the hearing community. So it's going to be like, the latest stuff technology, some simple signs. It's going to have like some support systems when you lose your hearing, some places you can go because I didn't have any of that. So I just don't want people to go through what I went through.
Were you always such a hopeful, gregarious, go for it person? Did you feel like you found another gear when you lost your hearing or faced, in addition to that, all these other challenges, did you feel like that is something that has boosted your ability to be hopeful, or has been a challenge to say, like, wow, I'm a hopeful person, but like, come on?
So I think at the end of the day, I faced something one day, right? Like I always had like, that challenge of why is this happening to me? Right? Like why life wasn't supposed to be this way. I was supposed to be on a yacht in Greece. Was not supposed to be this way. But I think one day I realized that like these are the cards you have and you either fold or you play it again. And like I played a win. So I was like, let's do this.
Yeah, I really feel like you've tapped into something that a lot of people who are listening want to find in their life, a better way to communicate, more hopeful in the middle of some really difficult things. And the thing about setbacks and pain is that pain is pain is pain. It's like not graded on a curve. You just have these challenges, and whether they're big or small, they're challenges. What kind of words would you offer to somebody who's listening to you and they're thinking about some of the difficulties they're facing in their life, which are different, but they are can be painful? What are some words that you'd pass along about maintaining your hopefulness, like hanging in there?
I think one of the big things that, through all the obstacles that I've faced, I think one of the things that kept me hopeful is, like there comes a point where I agree that you need to grieve, but then you need to move forward. With any loss that I've had, whether it's my face, my hearing, a loved one, if you're going through a divorce, it's sad, right? Like it's a loss to you. But at some point in time, you need to deal with that loss and move forward with it because that's the healthiest way. You need to get it out, and kind of just onwards and upwards. And I think that it's important to recognize your loss. But and don't be wrong, I still have days that, I'm upset about it. Like I feel like being like a positive person, I'm very realistic with it at the same time. Like, I'm not that person that was rainbows and sunshine all the time, just
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah, and where do you draw your inspiration from? What have been certainly your fiance, who's a lucky duck. I need to meet that guy sometime. Like the you guys obviously have something really special. What are the other inspirations? What do you read a lot? Do you find people that you're like reading like transcripts of what talks they're giving?
I think it's important when you go through things in your life to surround yourself with supportive people. Like I had people in my life that were not supportive and I don't have time. I need a net to lean on, with all the obstacles that I go through. Not I will say my fiance is like my biggest cheerleader, but my mom was really great, my family's really great, my friends are really great. But I think it's because the family, I was born into that, they're great. But with my fiance and friends, I positioned myself to be in a supportive community because I had those friends that weren't supportive. And I went through that. And finally, I had to realize, like, these are drains in my life that I'm constantly giving to somebody else, but I'm not getting that in return. And I deserve.
Yeah, sometimes some self-care. So you might be stuck in traffic listening to this podcast or out on a jog, but to do a little bit of an audit to say, who are the people that are surrounding me? And are they speaking words of life into me? Are they encouraging me? If faith guides your steps, are they encouraging you in your faith? If let's say your hopes and dreams, are they saying that'll never work? Or are they saying, wow, how could I help? When you decide, McKinnon, that there's somebody that you need to create a little space with, how do you navigate that? Has that been a difficult thing because you're a really upbeat person? Do you have the
Um,
like, see ya?
it's I hope you heal and wish you well. No, no, no. It's I love you from a distance. Like I will be there for you if you need a friend or you need a shoulder to cry on. But I've learned that if I need somebody to depend on, they're just not, it doesn't mean that if forever at that place. It just means right now they're not at that place. And I believe, the difference between, expectation and experience is frustration, right? And so if I'm expecting them to be something that they're not at right now, so if they need a little bit of distance, I just give them the distance, like, I'm here, I love you, over there.
Yeah, just to create a little bit of an air gap to just say, I know for
Right.
me, my bias is towards thinking about people and who they're becoming rather than who they are and who they were. I'll think of the prisoners, for instance, when they come up for parole. Oftentimes, I'll get some of the paperwork surrounding that. And in the paperwork is what the crime was and all of the details of the crime. And there might be somebody who's been in prison for 30 or 40 years. And so it's pretty horrific, whatever is written down in there. And I found myself early on reading that paperwork. And then it didn't like bias me against them, but just introduce new information I didn't need because that's who they were, not who they are, and certainly not who they're becoming. And so guarding my heart, there's a beautiful scripture in the Old Testament, Proverbs 4:23. It says, above all else, guard your heart because from it, your entire life will flow. And so guarding my heart with some of these prisoners means not looking at who they were, but thinking about who they're becoming. Um, when I think about you, I think about how you are just offloading so much hope to so many people. And I know you have, the more public you become as a figure that people are looking to, you'll also have people that are like still working on their people skills. Like they just they don't know you. It's not a friendship. They'll just say something that is like not reading the room properly. How do you guard your heart from strangers that have input and prevent that from being painful to you?
Well, I think words are powerful. I mean, as an author, I'm sure you feel that way. And so I'm not going to sit there and say that words don't hurt, right? But I think that, I always look at it from, is this somebody that's just confused about something and they're hurting? And then I try to meet people with where they're at. I have that compassion. But if somebody, is just being mean for no reason, I try to think about, okay, like maybe they're going through something. I do try to have compassion, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't create a boundary with it.
Yes. So a part of me that I don't think you knew, for like 30 years, I was a trial lawyer. And so I would win arguments for a living. Like that is the deal. I was a happy trial lawyer, but it was like really big arguments involving lots of people 3 states away. And I'd wake up each morning and I'd fly a couple states away and work, and then I'd fly home at night. So I did that for decades. A big change in me, and I think it's a function of some faith stuff, is I'm not trying to be right anymore with people. I'm just trying to be like Jesus. How could I be like when he was just really kind to people who were really lame? So somebody even this weekend wrote, and I know Stephanie, who's sitting here in the podcast room, must have gotten a copy of that. And they said, I read your book and it's such a lousy book or whatever. I was thinking, like, hold my earrings. I was going to say something, but instead I just wrote back and said, it was so thoughtful of you to take the time to write. Thank you and have a good weekend. So to just like not swing at every pitch, is that difficult for you to do or easy for you to do?
It was hard at first. I will say that when the comments first came in, I was like, it's like anything new, right? Like, how are you going to handle this? But I feel like the more that you practice, and I will say this, and I'm going to knock on some wood. I haven't gotten a lot of negative
I
comments.
mean, who could say something negative? Like you're just so filled with joy. But when it does come, to just guard your heart, even in the relationships or the difficulties, we're going to
Yeah.
move into a season in these coming months and years where people are going to be even more on edge than they are right now. And sometimes I think I'm talking to a person, but I'm really talking to whatever their biggest hang up is right now. So you feel like you're communicating with the person, but you're talking to just a lot of pain from time to time. And so I try to keep that in mind to say, listen, I would think with your joy, I would almost think like, what would McKinnon do? Like, I don't think, I think you'd smile and say, wow, that's something.
I think a lot of times, when you get the words that are hurtful, that kind of stuff, I think you need to remind yourself, like, not everybody's gonna like you. And like that's just we're all different. And I think that makes us beautiful that we're all different, but we're not everybody's cup of tea. And like that's okay with me, right? So the more that I'm like, but a lot of times when they get the words is that, it's a lot of insecurities of like, is this me? Is this me? And I finally realized that like, well, not everyone's gonna like me. I'm doing what I can. I'm trying to help the world. Like if they don't see my vision, that's okay.
Yeah, and we're gonna be constantly misunderstood. I've, had to get comfortable with that. I'm not aiming for being misunderstood, I just will be misunderstood, and you too. There'll be challenges not only from the hearing community to the deaf community, people thinking you should do something different or better, whatever, but to just say, "Wow, we're all, like, just trying to find our way forward. We do the best we can." But what I want to do is be reminded that we're remembered for our love. We're known for our opinions. And so what I want to do is just say, what do I want to be remembered for? And I've got a couple laps around the sun past you. So I go like I'm a little bit closer to the time I'll be remembered and to say, what do I want to be remembered for? And I don't want to be remembered for this guy who's up in somebody's grill about something. I want to be remembered for being somebody really safe. What is it that you want to be remembered for, McKinnon, as we land the plane? Tell me what you want to be remembered for. We're not going to be eulogizing you for 100 years, but what is the thing, this unique gift that you bring to the world that you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for changing the world. I'm just kidding.
That's
I want
awesome.
to be remembered for how I make people feel, because that's what they remember at the end of the day. I want to be remembered for that person that gave that mom whose kid just got diagnosed with NF2 hope
Yeah.
that they could do
Well,
that.
I can tell I'm one of the people along the way that got just wonderfully infected with whatever it is that you're carrying because you just carry so much hope. And I find when I listen to you on Instagram or get a chance to talk to you like this, you're just continuing to bubble up hope. And I know that that can be exhausting as well. And so, just from one hope giver to another hope giver, guard your heart as you're doing this and to say, you've got some big ambitions to change the world. Keep those really good friends close. And then when something a little wonky comes through, to just like tap the brakes to say, I need to create a little distance between me and that. Well, you guys, you've been listening to the Dream Big podcast. I hope that you feel like you have a new friend in McKinnon Galloway. She just delightful. McKenna, how do we find you on Instagram? Isn't it the Deaf Chick? Is that it?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is that Deaf Chuck Inca.
I just love that. And if you want a dose of positivity and fun, and then also actually learning a couple things in sign so you can honor the people that are around you in the deaf community, that's just a great resource. But what I'm hoping to do is that you'll think of something that McKinnon shared that you could actually put into play today. Don't just agree with her. Say, okay, so what am I going to do about that? And to take one small step forward. Zechariah 4:10. Um, don't despise small beginnings because the Lord delights in watching the work begin. And boy, I'm telling you, McKinney, you're doing some good work. So thank you for making a little time for us. And I'm going to get you out to the Oaks. We're going to write a book. That's going to happen. I think you have so many important things to say. I just really, really am delighted to get the chance to share you with more people.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on here, and it's been a treat for me.
That's fun. And tell me what's coming out. You're putting together right now.
Oh, so Deaf District. It's
Deaf
gonna be a new
District.
website. It's gonna be a website that encompasses just a lot of resources because in 2050 there's expected to be 2.5 billion people with hearing loss. So it's a coming thing. So I just want them to have a place they can go to kind of help them transition or whatever they need.
Yeah, that's awesome. McKinnon, thanks a million for taking the time. All right, you guys, go have a great week.